Namaskara and welcome to BIC Talks, a podcast by Bangalore International Centre.
In Bangalore and in India, we badly need to improve our culture of safety in all aspects of our lives. Perhaps one aspect that we are most ignorant about is fire safety. Vasanthi, Hariprakash and Sumit Khanna from Beyond Carlton join us on BIC Talks to help educate us on some aspects of fire safety. Beyond Carlton is a trust and an initiative started by Uday Vijayan and other like-minded people after the preventable Carlton Towers Fire tragedy that took place on 23rd February 2010, 11 years ago. Hi Vasanthi, hi Sumit, thank you so much for joining us on BIC Talks to talk about such an important issue. And Vasanthi, over to you.
Thank you, Pawan, for inviting us.
Thank you, Pawan. We are going to be trying our best to discuss why things are the way they are in India and why fire is so less discussed while it has created and actually unleashed so many fire tragedies across the decades. So first of all, as I welcome Sumit Khanna, a fellow executive council member on Beyond Carlton, let me take a couple of minutes to tell you what Sumit has done, especially in the field of fire. Sumit has been into the profession of fire and risk management for over 17 years. He has himself been involved in fire and rescue operations. And also, I would say the other side, which is preventing fire tragedies through certification at a company called UL. Sumit has also been part of the solution side from the other side, one could say, which is preventing fire through certification at a company called UL, and particularly focuses on risk management in a company called Factory Mutual Global or FM Global. Sumit, let me ask you or begin by being surprised when I got to know that you're one of the few fire protection engineers in the country. That actually means that you're qualified by a degree. So tell us a little more about that.
I actually graduated in 2003 from a college called as National Fire Service College. And when I did, that was the only college which provided fire protection engineering and had specialization in fire protection. There are other colleges now which provide some fire protection engineering degrees too. National Fire Service College not only brought out some of the fire protection engineers, but great fire professionals in the country who are some of the head of the state fire departments. I mean, either at the state level or there are some great fire professionals who are leading at the central level.
The one that you graduated from is in Nagpur?
Right, Vasanthi. It is National Fire Service College, Nagpur.
What's the kind of a requisite that you had to have to get into, this college?
When I did that, it was 10 plus 2 plus graduation was the minimum qualification that you needed to have. So I did my 10 plus 2 and then minimum qualification was BSc with physics, chemistry, maths. Then you go through a written exam followed by the medical exam and then the interview and then you get selected. So the day when I gave the exam, the number of seats were only 30. So the intake was only 30 fire engineers. So you can imagine when I was in 2003, we had only less than 500 fire engineers being produced in the country. But there were lots of fire professionals that came out through National Fire Service College because the college was very old and fire protection engineering was a relatively newer stream or the field of engineering that they started teaching.
So given the fact that many people may not even know that such a course exists and you may be opening their eyes to such a possibility, what exactly did you get to learn in your education that you actually get to use now as a fire safety engineer?
So course is beautiful. Now the intake has also increased. There are many other private colleges which has come up. They also offer fire protection engineering. When I did fire protection engineering, the course had variety of subjects, and that is what excited me. So first year pretty much is common to all engineering branches, as we all know. At the same time, we had the fire and the rescue drills that we used to do. So it had engineering on one side and at the same time paramedical sort of training on the other side. So it gives you the zeal of not only learning the subjects in the classroom, but also the life-saving skills that you can learn, which is on the ground. And it had subjects not only related with engineering, but we had subjects even from psychology. We had subjects from the paramedics. We had subjects from telecommunication. There are a variety of subjects, even including the disaster management plans and making. So it had so much of the variety of subjects to cover that it's really, a great, profession, and you can learn so many things in that college that you can learn and adopt and try to save the world from not only just the fire, but there are other disasters which keep happening. And then you always expand your knowledge beyond fire and then try to save people from fire or earthquake or a flood or a wind.
I'm glad to hear that, Sumit, given, not many people have great things to say about curriculum in their courses. We almost always think that it's obsolete, but it's heartening in a way that what you studied covered much ground. It seemed to be quite comprehensive. Because let's tell our listeners, meanwhile, what is the scenario of fire beyond what you already know or you have seen? Each one of us has seen either, before our eyes or probably on television or read about fire tragedies that have unfolded. It could be the one in Surat in the coaching academy. Bangalore has had a very historic fire, the circus fire in the 80s. There is a Kamla Mills fire tragedy. And of course, Bangalore has had, and many, many cities have had their own share. But 17,500 lives per year lost to a fire accident or any kinds of fire is what the National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, had put out in some of its latest data. There's also a particular skew of, let's say, people who succumb to fire. More women seem to be victims of fire accidents. At least 35 lose their lives daily. But let me begin by asking you this very simple language or layperson language, if you could tell us, Sumit, what are the codes and standards in India that relate to fire safety?
See, codes and standards are nothing but the guidelines. It's a book. It tells you what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. So I'll give you an example. If you are constructing a residential complex or a commercial building or coming up with an industry, you want to know how the building construction should be. So the country has laid down some guidelines in the book called as National Building Code. And National Building Code provides you enough and ample guidelines to make sure that you have created and constructed the building from all the constructional aspects to electrical aspects to plumbing aspects to fire and life safety to earthquake aspects and many other, which is covered in the National Building Code. As far as fire and life safety is concerned, National Building Code Chapter 4 talks about what needs to be done in any type of the building from fire and life safety perspective. Now, Chapter 4 is comprehensive in terms of telling any architect or the builder, how do you protect the occupants inside the building when you create the building? So it lays down from fire prevention and fire protection, and it gives you the guideline of how do you make sure that when there is a fire, you can rescue everybody out. So book is very simple. If people do read it, of course, it might take some time for a layman to understand some of the language which is mentioned. However, a lot of professionals and practitioners, they do understand what is written in that book. Now, on one side, it would say that what needs to be done to prevent fire and losses to be reduced in any building. On the other side, you have to make sure that how do I do it, right? And now how do I do it is actually written in the standards. So I'll give you an example. You need sprinklers in a building. Is written in the code, yes or no? Whether sprinklers in the residential building required or industrial building required, yes or no? Now you want to know how do you want to install it. That installation procedure is actually written in the standards. And that is how it says how it needs to be installed. What should be the spacing of sprinklers? What should be the orifice size? How big, how small should be the sprinklers? So that is actually written in the standards. If we amalgamate these two documents, these two books, we come up with a beautiful guidelines which any builder or any practitioner can adopt and can implement in National Building Code. Have 9 different classifications of the building, be it from residential to educational to industrial to commercial, right? And those buildings can be made fire safe if we follow those guidelines to its entirety.
Taking from NCRB data once again, 2019, it said 51% of fire deaths are from 5 states mainly: Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh. So, Sumit, how come some states do better than a few others? And are these codes different and the bylaws different for different states?
So if you see in terms of the data that we have, I think the first and foremost important point here to highlight is that we really lack data. If these 4 and 5 states are reporting and recording the data and that is contributing to NCRB, we might have to find out whether the other states are really recording it, reporting or not. So I would wait to see when we have a national fire data recording system, which unfortunately does not exist today in India. And at the same time, there is no state. Of course, the states do record, but it is not available in the public domain. And anybody who wants to understand how many fires, in what type of buildings the fire has taken place, whether the women died more or the men died more, or whether it was because of the constructional aspects, or whether it was because of the poor fire protection system, those kind of data and the data analysis does not take place. So I'll put that question on the data. However, coming back to your second part of the question, whether the same building code applies to the whole of the country and do we have any deviations in terms of building bylaws? So very valid point. We have a recommendatory national building code, and national building code, which is the guideline and the book which comes out of the extensive work that Bureau of Indian Standards do. And that is a recommendatory document for all these states. Now that recommendatory document needs some form of teeth before it can be adopted and get made as a regulation in any state. Some of these states have adopted national building codes to its entirety through some state regulations and have said blindly that everybody will have to follow national building code, and throughout the state they have the same level of implementation. However, there are few cities and few states wherein the state regulations are dependent on the city regulations, which is controlled by the municipal corporations. And that's where you would find some building bylaws, and they would have slight deviations. I would not say they vary completely away from what national building code says. There would be some minute differences that you can find out. For an example, a Mumbai might call a high-rise building with a different height, and Nagpur might call a high-rise building with a different height.
This sort of, reminds me of what we are grappling with in the age of COVID. When people begin to feel happy that a certain state is recording less or fewer cases of COVID, then the people who turn around and say, but you see, the testing is not being done enough, and therefore the data could be flawed in that sense. So I guess there is a valid concern about what you tabled, which is that do we even have enough data, and what can really, and in fact, what can lead us towards such a national registry of data that can be more specific and can actually help us, grow this information base. Now, Sumit, you yourself were a part of the Committee of Bureau of Indian Standards, I think from about 2016 to 2019. And so this is the one which revises the new National Building Code and national standards. So is that as citizens who are listening to this podcast, there can be a satisfaction that our laws per se are robust enough to cater to the kind of fires that India faces? I mean, we'll get to the implementation, the huge challenges, but you are saying from a policy point, what's your take on it?
See, any document that we come up with has to be a living document and a dynamic document. So when we talk about either the building code or the building standards that we write in the country, has to be dynamic one, because the technology, even on the construction side, is changing a lot. And today we have more combustible panels that is being used inside the building than ever before. The commodities like normal carton boxes or the table and the chair will burn differently. Instead of having the chairs of plastics or use of polyurethane foam in the sofas and the material that we have inside the paneling in the building. So protection also should be based on whether we have only wood to burn versus whether we have a lot of plastics to burn. There is a lot of advancement which has taken place even in terms of sprinkler technology. How do you throw the water? The water that you throw inside an office, would that be sufficient if I have the same water that I want to throw it in the industrial building? And would that be same water requirement if I throw the same water in the warehouse building? Now, all the different buildings are having different commodities to burn. We need to understand that there is a lot of change which is happening, and we have to keep the pace of these documents with the advancement that is happening in the construction technology as well as on the fire protection technology. Now, we do lack R&D facility in our country as far as fire safety is concerned. So we do not know how the new panels that is coming up to be put on the buildings is going to behave in fire. We had a little example, little experience with how the concrete is going to contribute to the prevention of the fire spread. Now we have a lot of glass buildings. Now we have a lot of aluminum panels that is being used and which has a lot of polyurethane foam inside it. Now, would that increase the spread of the fire? There are a lot of vertical openings. There are a lot of horizontal openings that were earlier not there. Would that lead to the development and spread of smoke and fire? Now, all those things have to be accounted in the National Building Code as well as the national standards. So, if I talk whether they are sufficient, they might be sufficient today, but in 5 years, lot many things change in the construction technology and in fire protection technology. So those documents have to keep pace with the change that is happening around us. And we need to keep it updated every time there is a change which is happening. So I think internationally also, we see that the document gets revised once in 3 years. I think we have to come to a state wherein, if not 3 years, we have to mandatorily revise all of our document once in 5 years and make it available for public consumption so that they can get the benefit of using the most latest document rather than an obsolete document. There are certain standards which would be very, very old, some 1980s to 1990s. Things which were in 1980s or 90s are no more relevant today. So as far as documents are concerned, I can say we need to keep up the pace at which other technologies are changing, how the construction is changing, and then we have to keep revising it.
Very, very valid. And in fact, the mind-boggling level of challenge that fire professionals and policymakers have to really deal with, given the construction materials, as you said, and the technology that is on the other side. But let me now move ourselves to the people who are at the core of it all. That is a person who's stuck in a fire accident in a building or in an independent house, in a high rise. There are so many measures that I see, Sumit, some apartment associations that proactively do, which is to do a fire safety drill. IT companies do it all the time. But it's very evident that we, the people, do not take it seriously enough. We somehow put fire safety on such a back burner, quite literally. Is that I've never really seen people who take a fire safety drill seriously, and sometimes when it's actually happening, the consequences are so tragic. Why? Why do you think, as somebody who's personally been involved in fire safety and rescue operations, what's our psychology as a country towards fire?
Vasanthi, we generally have a lack of culture of safety in this country. And you look around us, the examples that you would see, with the people driving without the seat belt or putting the helmet or driving at a higher speed, or even the construction worker without the proper gears, or you go to some of the leisure boat rides, they give you the boat ride without full gears. So similar to other forms of safety, I see most of us believe that fire is not going to happen to me. Much like, road accident, it's not going to happen to me. So then why bother? And very few of us have personally experienced a fire situation and understand the situation well, that, if it happens, it can be pretty dangerous. Now, as far as changing the attitude and the psychology of the individuals are concerned, it's a long battle. And I believe if safety, which today in some of these schools I think they have included as a part of the curriculum, if this is a part of the curriculum right from the beginning, then at least the next generation of the kids would be more concerned about the safety in general. And then we need to bridge the gap in between the fire brigade and the general public, so that the more and more kids gets excited towards joining the fire force and not look them upon. Education and in terms of understanding of the individuals, again, it's very, very long process. And a lot of people, even after seeing the fire either in the media or through the other forms, through the friends, still do not take that seriously, which again, I mean, overnight, if you ask us, it can change. No, I think overnight it cannot be changed. I think many other countries have got a great example. They have run campaigns over campaigns to make people educated. So similarly, if you see, recently the government of Karnataka has announced February 23rd as the Fire Prevention Day after the Carlton Tower Fire, which happened in 2010. I think we need more of those fire prevention days than just once in a year. And it has to be celebrated. And I mean, of course, it was a tragedy. And I think that the day marks the anniversary of the biggest tragedy that we had in the state of Karnataka, one of the biggest. However, I think we need to celebrate more of fire prevention days so that people are aware, and we should not restrict to once in a year during the fire prevention week, which happens during 14th April to 20th April, or during the fire prevention day to on February 23rd. I think there has to be more of fire prevention days and weeks and more connect that we need with the general public.
I remember this time when we were all at a 5-star hotel facility somewhere in the heart of Bangalore. And it was, everyone's having this talk and some sort of thing was going on stage. And all of a sudden, the public address system in that hotel just came alive and they said, please, we seemed, and the fire alarm went off. This was about a couple of years back. The next minute, the mood went totally kind of somber. Like in that 1 second, the reality sort of hit home for each of us. Was thinking, oh God, now what if it's really a fire accident? Because there were easily about 200 of us in a room. And then your mind then starts ticking, saying that, okay, are there exits? Where are the exits? Though nowadays, as part of protocol, you're supposed to announce at the beginning of a program, but you never pay attention to all these things, isn't it? So tell us, therefore, a little more that if you find yourself as, a citizen in such a situation where the fire may have gone off and you don't know the building enough. It's not even your usual workplace where you may have done a drill. It might even be a hotel or any place that you're just visiting. Do you have some 2 to 3 top points that we should keep in mind?
Sometimes when I have checked into a hotel, I have always asked them to give me a room which is closer to the exit. And they have always, why do you take the room next to the exit? I said, I really don't know whether all your fire protection systems do work, all the life safety systems do work. And in case I need to run, I should be aware of where the staircase is. So I've always made sure when I get down on any corridor in, say, 30-floor building or a 50-floor building, I always make sure that I see where the exit is. And more often, I think now it is even a law that you need to have the fire exit marks, which has to be placed not only at the top of every floor, but also on the bottom side of the floors. And the reason why it is there is because if there is a darkness in the area and if you cannot see it and there is a lot of smoke, the best practice is always to crawl down because it's lighter and it actually goes up and all the smoke would be settled towards the ceiling. So you still have a lot of area in the bottom if you keep a handkerchief which is a little wet on your nose and then cover your nose with the little wet handkerchief and then keep crawling. You will always see some little fire exit marks that will lead you all the way to the exit. And then you can always go out from that floor. Many times during the panic, we try to run around. When we try to run around, we are doing two things. First of all, we are inhaling a lot of smoke, which further damages the mental capacity. And then second, we are actually losing our time and energy. The best thing is sit down, crawl down. There is always a chance that towards the lower level of the ground, you will not find enough smoke and you will always find some exit signs which is being mentioned, which can take you all the way to the exit. And then sometimes, as bizarre as this question, I asked one of the guys in one of the 5-star properties and I said, are your fire pumps in the auto mode? And he said, sir, what? Are your fire pumps in the automatic mode? I said, sir, I don't understand this question, but why are you asking this? And I said, see, if I don't get the water in my toilet, would you give me the water immediately? He said, sir, absolutely. There are no chances that you will not have water in your toilet. I said, exactly. And I am asking you the question, do I have water in my sprinkler system? Because there is a sprinkler which is trying to save my life in my room. I want to make sure that you have given that enough water so that there is any fire, it can save my life. I said, sir, I don't understand the question, but I can put you across to my facility manager. So then I actually, checked in, of course, and I was talking with the facility manager, and he says, yeah, no, nobody actually asked that question. They are worried about whether there is a water in the toilet or not. Who is bothered whether there is a water in the sprinkler system or not? He made sure that he takes me to the basement, and he said, so since you have asked, I would love to, take you to the basement. And I want to show you that, yes, all the fire pumps are running in the automatic mode. So in case there is any emergency, they can kick in anytime whenever there is a need. So yeah, these are some of the things that people can ask. I think, and it's fair to ask anything about your own safety. They have all the right to let you know, yeah, all the fire exits are open. We have emergency backups, and we have trained firefighting staff inside the premises. All the sprinklers and fire extinguishers do work. In case you need any help, you can dial this number. So I think very fair question to ask whenever we either buy an apartment, buy a flat in a large residential complex, or we work in a commercial building, or even when we check in into any hotel. Very fair question to ask.
That's right. I don't think we should shy away from that or think that this is way too technical. At least knowing the basic aspect of just how safe we are in a building seems a fair point to ask. But Sumit, you are a fire engineer. How educated are practitioners in general in the field of fire safety? And one critical aspect, how educated are the builders in your experience?
Okay, before I actually talk about the education, I would say everybody's intent. I think there is nobody, including the builders, who would want to deliberately kill anybody in fire. So the intent is very clear. They want to provide best of the fire safety arrangement inside the building. Now, including some of the small builders, okay, there are few who try to cut corners. I wouldn't say that there are none. There are few who try to cut corners and try to save money on life safety arrangements. And it comes down to putting something substandard. You need a no objection certificate from fire department, right? You just hang some red pipes, put some red pump, and I think the job is done. So there are practitioners and engineers and architects who have done even that also. Now, we have very few engineers that actually come out of the college who have trained fire protection engineers. There are good amount of fire professionals who know what a fire field is. But there is definitely a need to train the practitioners today, because what they read codes and standards in their curriculum, I'm talking of the architects, they would have a very limited understanding as a part of the curriculum. Now, that understanding what they have on the basis of what they have studied in the college is different than when it comes down to the implementation, because they have studied the subject from the perspective of passing an exam on National Building Code. But when it comes down to really trying to implement that code, what you're implementing is not just one portion of the National Building Code. You are actually implementing a life safety features in the building that very few practitioners and architects do understand, and they do their job religiously well. Some of the beautiful buildings that you can see within the country, they have designed fire protection systems in a much, much nicer fashion. However, if I have to say there is a scope of improvement, I would say, yeah, huge scope of improvement in terms of even the learning and the education of the practitioners and engineers in this country.
You spoke about the no objection certificate that a builder can get from the local municipal body. Actually, according to the National Building Code, what are the kind of points or checklist that have to be in place before such a no objection certificate is issued, whether it's a theatre, whether it's a building, hospital? How do these things work on ground?
Well, if you see the part 4 is a beautiful document which would tell you what needs to be done from life safety perspective or fire prevention and fire protection. How wide should your staircase be? How many staircase should be? And how far should you have the staircase from the extreme corner of the building? And depending on that, if you exceed that certain distance, you need to increase the number of staircase. Where the staircase should it be right next to the lift lobby, or should it be away? All those features are mentioned. And then again, it comes down to whether you need sprinklers, whether you need a hose reel, whether you need extinguishers or alarms, and then the fire pump systems in the basement or outside the building. So it gives you a lot of beautiful guidelines. The thing is, it's not a simple checklist. Many times what happens is, two staircases provided? Yeah, provided. Now, if the staircases do have the openings and staircases do connect with all the floors without a fire door, then there are high chances that any smoke which gathers in on that floor can actually get to the staircase as well. So a staircase is supposed to be the most safest part of the building where no smoke or no fire travels. So that's why you would not see any utility running inside the staircase. If you breach that, all the smoke gets entered into the staircase. Now, I can say staircases provided, yes. Doors provided, yes. Now, if the doors are not a fire check doors, then smoke and the fire is going to enter inside the staircase and it's going to clog even the staircase with the smoke. Now, checklist per se, I think we would have qualified, yes, they have followed everything. And then they can even get the no objection certificate also, because it's a piece of paper, right, from the fire department that you receive once in lifetime. And after that, for an example, if you really do not maintain the building well, you try to run the cables inside the electrical shaft by breaking all the vertical penetrations, then you have high chances of fire spreading from one floor to another floor. So getting a piece of paper once in lifetime is one thing by following the checklist. However, meeting the real intent of the checklist. Why is it saying so? I think every question that has been answered in part 4 has a deep meaning to it. Why are they saying to have a through penetration fire stop kind of cut off on every floor? Now, the intent is fire do not travel from one horizontal area to another horizontal area or one vertical to another vertical area. That intent has to be met throughout the life. So on one side, we can get a piece of paper. However, that piece of paper has to be maintained well. Every year that exercise has to be done. What we did at the beginning of taking the no objection certificate, I think builders or anybody who occupies that building should ask that question every now and then and every year, whether we are still following exactly the same thing, because building gets old, the systems get old, and the utilities, do not function. The electrical pieces, would buckle up and would create fires. So I think we would need that checklist, or we would need that audit system to be even more robust 10 years into the life of the building or 20 years into the life of the building, because as the building gets older, we need more of the prevention audits.
So do we understand that even without the help of, let's say, the fire department per se, or the fire engines to reach a spot, there is a way to contain to some extent small fires within a whole building or, an institution itself?
Absolutely. I think, fire departments are not the first responders. We always call them as the first responder. The first responders are not them. The first responders are the citizens. Anybody who would spot a fire, you, me, Pawan, or anybody. When we are working in any building, we many a times see that fire and fire becomes big. Sometimes we have to just calm down. We have to know how a basic extinguisher function. Because even before the sprinkler can get operated, fire has to completely grow in that room. And that is how the sprinklers or the alarms would operate. Before that, if people are really calm and people understand there is a fire, either anywhere, be it in the basement or be it on any floor, the security staff or even the people who are working in that building be at least conversant with how to operate a basic extinguisher. It is as simple as that, if I know how to drive a car, how to ride a bike, or how to ride a cycle, or how to do a swimming, these are very, very simple, basic life safety skills. If everybody knows how to operate a little fire extinguisher, I think most of the fires can be controlled. And believe me, the fires that we see in the media is only a fraction of it. I can guarantee there are n number of, and there would be 20 times higher number of fires that would have taken place in India. But there would have been some concerned security guard or some concerned citizen who knew how to operate that extinguisher and operated it at the correct time, so that that fire never became a bigger fire and never created Carlton Towers like what we had in 2010.
That's beautifully put. One thing is to have these measures in place and to have extinguishers that work and people who know how to operate that. And then we talk about, let's say, the fire department. Suppose if it does indeed, unfortunately, grow to be a bigger fire than what citizens in that building can handle, there comes the fire department, Sumit. And many times they can't even reach the spot despite them having to be one of the first responders, simply because they would be stuck in a traffic jam, as what has happened in all the tragedies that we see around us. So the fire department, has its own set of challenges because it's adding, or rather, let's say that a city like Bangalore with its own traffic jams and infrastructure issues, then you have a case of even help reaching that fire spot in time, which of course otherwise can lead to a bigger tragedy. Now, here is what I want to say, the kind of work that Beyond Carlton has done, which is to be the first, let's say, citizen-led community to present a specific blueprint, which means that actionable points over the next 5 years. What is it that it can be done, and what is a pathway? How can it be done? And you, Sumit, along with our other colleague at Beyond Carlton, Venkitachalam, Venki as he is called, were among those who kind of put the blueprint together, which many people in other cities have said that can be a model for other governments, other states to follow in having a blueprint specifically for fire safety. Can you just break that down in simple language for people listening to us?
Well, I think every government would have little blueprint, or you can call it as the planning document that every government would come up with, because we need to come up with 5-year planning document, how we need to get the things done and how do we have to make change in any situation. So blueprint is nothing but a document that we thought, I think we can work along with the government of Karnataka Fire Department. And along with them, we kept talking on the issues that they have on the hand. We tried understanding from the data that they have. We tried understanding from the type of the fires that they have been fighting. We tried to understand the issues that you just brought out. How do we reach the spot on time during this, peak time, heavy traffic in Bangalore? So we had listed down all their problems, and then we had to put them into different buckets. And some of them were regulatory, some of them were, of course, related with enforcement, some of them were related with development of fire service, some of them were related with education. And we said, see, in 1 year, you cannot achieve everything. There are certain goals that you can achieve in 1 year. There are certain goals that you can achieve in 2 years, and then certain goals that you can achieve in 3 to 5 years. And then we put down different goals in different buckets, 1 year, 2 to 3 years, and 3 to 5 years. And then we had put down the activities that needs to be done to achieve those goals. That is what we had tried to build it. And we said, if we do it this first 5 years and repeat the same thing in another 5 years, there is a great reduction in terms of not only the number of fires that can happen, but also the overall development of the fire service. And at the same time, the better implementation of the different codes and standards in the city of Bangalore and overall in the state of Karnataka. So that blueprint is something that, it has to be a living document that we have worked with along with the Karnataka Fire Department. And that document, if implemented well to its entirety, can be a guiding document not only for the city of Bangalore, can be a guiding document for any city to adopt certain good features and tweak it, change it, amend it. Ultimately, the idea is to provide a better fire and life safety to the citizens of that city or the citizens of India.
So, with this far, we have discussed quite a bit in detail about the National Building Code, the various enforcement challenges, the education part, and so much more that's actually there in theory, but actually what happens in reality, the no objection certificate. But let's now, as we wind up this discussion, come to the core of it all, which is that what do I as an individual do? Now, there are places around us, whether we are living inside our homes, whether we are walking across to a shop or going into a mall, a theater, or visiting someone at a hospital, or into our own offices, these huge high-rise buildings, wherever we've been visiting, every place is a potential spot for a fire accident. So how do I, the same individual who's going across all these places, do something which is in my capacity to stay fire safe, to make my neighborhood fire safe, Sumit?
I think that's very, very important point. And when you asked, what is that I should do? I think that's where the key lies. Many a times, in fact, most of the time, we expect somebody to come down and tell us that this is wrong. We love regulations. We love policing around. We love people coming and telling, shut the door. We love people telling us wear the seat belt. We love people telling us wear the helmet or wear the mask during the corona times. I think we sometimes need to get away from the habit of if only police or fire authority would come down and then only I would change it. There are certain things that we as an individual can do. And as far as fire safety is concerned, there is a lot that we can do. We all go to movie theaters, as you said, the malls that we visit, the offices we work in, or large residential complexes that we stay. All those places are vulnerable to fire. And some of the simple things that you can do and check whether your exits are open or not. As simple as that, when you see a fire exit sign and you see there is a chain and lock, many times I have spoken to some of the mall owners and I said, this is a fire exit. Why have you chained and locked it? And they said, because of security reasons. We said, yeah, on one side, this is a security reason. People should not take the material out. But at the same time, when there is a fire, how do you know that people can come only from that entrance and exit only from that entrance where you want them to? So it's very difficult for people to follow the same entry and exit. If there is a same entry and same exit, it is very difficult because you will have all the population. You go to any mall, right? And typically we enter from one same entry and exit from the same door. Now, if you do not know about the exits, which is located at multiple places, we can enter inside the mall and can get lost around. Things like that. Sprinkler system. I mean, if you see some of these sprinklers above your head and you still see a cap on it, you can say that, oh, looks like the sprinkler system cap, the orange color cap that you see is still on it. Looks like the fire protection system has not been tested. It's a fair question to ask the facility manager, are you sure that these sprinkler system do function? Similarly, if you spot a detector and if there is no light blinking, you can understand that there is no power going to that detector. So in case there is any smoke, it might not give you any alarm. Now, things like, the combustible material inside the electrical panel room or all those things are little relevant for the people who are doing the maintenance of the building. And I think I would highly encourage even those people. It's as simple as that. Fire prevention. I mean, if you can keep the combustible material away from the fire source, which is the electrical panels, electrical cabinets, then there are chances of reducing the fire. At the same time, when you have utilities of the building being run 24/7 in a perfectly fine condition, to make sure that there is a water in the pantry, to make sure that there is water in the kitchen, to make sure that there is water in the toilets, can that facility management team also ensure that there is a water in fire protection system 24/7? Because many a times when there is a fire, we have observed that there is a valve which is closed somewhere, or the pump which is put on the manual or off mode, whereas it's supposed to run in automatic mode. So there are certain things that as a citizen we can do. There are certain things that as the facility team which can do. And some of the things are very, very simple to do to achieve overall goal of fire and life safety or something. Things are simple. So there are certain things that I think all of us can keep our eyes and ears open. And we can all together make little contribution towards making our own society little more fire safe.
Just how significant is that suggestion, Sumit, that each one of us becomes a fire champion within ourselves, a firefighter at least. At Beyond Carlton, what we have done is that every year around February 23rd, which is when the tragedy happened, we have a memoriam program, which is not just to mark our respect to the 9 lives that were lost that year, to lives that are lost in general to fire tragedies across India, across the world, but also as to what we can do to co-opt with agencies, to work with fire departments, to actually felicitate firemen, which is also something that we do year after year. But as you really put out some very concrete example for each of us to see that what is it around us that will not really take us to be a rocket scientist, but just some sort of a common sense and be on alert. I think the recent pandemic has definitely taught us some lessons. We've seen children, for instance, become more careful, more cautious by instructing even the elders in the family about never taking off the mask or to do hand hygiene. Similarly, I personally have a lot of hope in the generation that's before us. That's a lot of children who can be and who need to be taught this in curriculum across schools. I would like to therefore place on record that Beyond Carlton has petitioned the state government of Karnataka also for another important aspect, which is to have burn wards in government hospitals in districts across Karnataka, and also to push this fire safety as a subject in the curriculum of schools. I know this podcast will not be able to go into that, which is its entire topic, and what happens to fire victims, how equipped are we, what's the reality in our hospitals, why don't we have enough beds for fire victims, what about women? Now that is something I think which is left for another day. But today in this episode, we certainly, on behalf of the team of Beyond Carlton, tried to tell you what we know and what we have seen as a community which is dedicated to fire safety in India, in Karnataka.
Thank you so much, Vasanthi, and thank you so much, Pawan, again for inviting us.
Thank you, Sumit and Vasanthi, for joining us on BIC Talks. Dear listeners, head on over to beyondcarlton.org to learn more about how you can do more to ensure fire safety in and around your life and that of the people you care about. Thank you for listening in till the end. Please share this episode with a friend on social media, WhatsApp, or anywhere else. It would mean the world to us. And in case you're listening via iTunes or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and a review. Subscribe to BIC Talks on email or your favorite podcast app, and don't miss out on future episodes. This episode of BIC Talks has Gaurav Krishna as our sound engineer, with support from S. Sarvanaraj and Lekha Naidu. And the accompanying episode artwork was made by Chandni Venkataraman.
Thank you for listening to this episode of BIC Talks. This podcast can be accessed on our website, bangaloreinternationalcentre.org, as well as on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Tune in for new episodes every week. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages to stay informed on our latest updates.